Hi friends! Today I wanted to talk about some absolutely wild celebrity moments ranging from messed up to creepy to absolutely irredeemable, throw the person in prison. So let's just kick it off with something super tame and slowly work our way to the truly disturbing stuff. So in 2019, Emily Ratajkowski, better known as Emrata, who's a successful model, and her then husband Sebastian Bear-McClard, who's an independent film producer and director, together had a network well into the millions. So why weren't they paying their $4,900 a month rent? And before you say good for them, screw landlords, hear me out. The couple who owe about $160,000 in payments to their landlord were using a legal loophole called the Loft Law, which is meant to help low-income families and artists with affordable housing. So realistically, while the couple was screwing over their landlord, they were also robbing a low-income family of a home that was intended for people less fortunate than a couple of wealthy celebrities. They hadn't been paying their rent for years and could not legally be evicted because of the Loft Law despite their lease ending years prior. The couple was eventually paid to leave the apartment in December of 2019, and after these starving artists were evicted, they bought a cozy little mansion in LA for $2 million. It's just always gross seeing celebs scam to get ahead, especially when it takes away opportunities from people who actually need them. And this is the woman who has recently rebranded and built a platform on social justice, and her husband who produced Uncut Gems, which starred Adam Sandler, Julia Fox, The Weeknd, and Idina Menzel, earning $50 million in the box office. Moving on to our number 9 spot, this one is dedicated to some seriously uncomfortable casting choices. The newly released film Wildcats, which is a movie about the life of Flannery O'Connor, directed by Ethan Hawke, starring his daughter, 25-year-old Maya Hawke. It's come out that Ethan actually directed his daughter Maya in several graphic sex scenes, and Ethan has made it clear that he was unbothered, stating that he couldn't care less directing these intimate scenes. Maya stated that an intimacy coordinator was hired more for the castmates' benefit than her own, as many of her co-stars felt uncomfortable with the familial aspects taking place behind the scenes. She stated it was so that they felt safe and not like they were being spied on, and then Ethan chimes in saying, by some creepy dad. Whatever that means, being spied on by a creepy dad. And even stranger, they joked about rituals that they do in order to switch off the family dynamic and focus on the work, though they did not further clarify what that meant.
I know Maya hired you. Do you guys talk about ground rules when you're working together, that kind of thing?
No. I mean, I think maybe if you had to talk a lot about that, maybe you shouldn't do it. This is like, you know, if things like mutual respect and commitment and excellence, aspirational excellence, if those have to be like written out as ground rules, maybe you should not work together.
Yeah.
And look, maybe it's just because I like Maya Hawke, but simply based on this alone, it is creepy and gross and weird, but I don't necessarily believe that they've got anything more nefarious happening behind the scenes. Unlike the next few celebrities that I'm going to talk about. Number 8, since we're on the topic of celebrities being inappropriate towards their children, in 2011, Lindsay Lohan was caught in a club making out with her mother. Yes, making out with her mom. And this is not a rumor. This was photographed and documented by several pop news sites. So while celebrating Lindsay's mother, Dina's 49th birthday party at a club called Beauty and Essex, the mother and daughter were caught fully kissing open mouth while Dina twirls Lindsay's hair. Her brother Cody sits just to the side of them and doesn't even acknowledge how weird this is, which makes you wonder how common this is in their household and what happens behind closed doors. Lindsay reps commented saying that they were not going to respond to the disgusting insinuations made.
You guys, as her parents, do you feel any responsibility for that?
You know, I think when she was little, she saw most of the abuse, and so Lindsay did witness a lot, and I absolutely think it takes its toll on children as well.
I think, inevitably, we are responsible for what Lindsay, the path that Lindsay took. Our divorce, because of our relationship, affected Lindsay to the point where she drowned her sorrows and numbed her pain. And it breaks my heart to think that she suffered because of the way I acted. And I see it every day, and I see how people struggle with it. And this kid is such a talented girl, and she's come such a long way.
Yeah.
Number 7.
I'm the director, do what I say.
This one is similar to the last, but this one has happened so many times that we really can't nail down a specific time or occasion that this happened. It's just kind of a continual thing. And this one's a bit of a 2-for-1, so here we go. This one is about Will Smith forcibly kissing his son Jayden on the lips multiple times in multiple different interviews. There's not much to say about this one, so let's just let the clips speak for themselves.
Action showing between the general and his son.
Absolutely.
Is it like that at home or no?
Nah,
Really. We're very affectionate.
But have you ever
We're very affectionate.
He tried to kiss me in the
have you ever kissed your son on Thai television before?
You're allowed. I can kiss
Can
my
you kiss
son.
your on Thai TV?
I can kiss my son.
No,
Jayden, come on.
Are you okay? Are you okay?
Oh my God, this is ridiculous.
Dude, come on.
You know I love him, Ellen. I love him. I do. No, you know, it's I think you know, when you have kids and you love them and you're proud of them, you just want to kiss them in the mouth sometimes.
We'll have to get you over that. Next time you're here, I got you in my underwear. I'm going to get you some.
No, I shouldn't have told her.
I'm going to get you some ice.
Come on here.
Come on.
Jayden.
Just want him to feel the affection, you know? Like,
And it's true. I mean, there is a thing where I know you were like, but when
I want to kiss you and just say, Jayden. Just keep a smile. Just keep a smile. Just keep a smile. Thank you, man.
Thank you,
That was great, right?
Try and like kiss you and stuff. I saw you guys on Ellen, and you were like
That
alive.
happens all the time.
So even on set, he wasn't even trying to.
No,
like,
not on the set he wasn't trying to kiss me, but after the set he'll try to kiss me or anywhere else.
So there's obviously a lack of respect, consent, and boundaries on Will's side, but I find it really curious that at one point when Will himself was forcibly kissed by a man who was described as a prankster posing as a reporter at the Men in Black 3 premiere in Moscow, Russia, he slapped the man and asked what his problem is. So clearly he understands the humiliation that Jayden must be feeling. He just doesn't seem to find consent important because it's his son and not a stranger.
Oh my God, a dream. There you go. There you go. Oh man, what the hell is your problem, buddy? There you go. What the hell is your problem, buddy? Hey, man. Come on, man. What the hell is your problem, buddy? All right. Hey, sorry. You said kiss me in my mouth. He's joking. Lucky I ain't sucker punching.
Moving on to number 6, in 2019, Jeremy Renner's ex-wife, Sunny Pacheco, who is 20 years younger than Renner, claims that while drunk and high on coke in a club, Jeremy ranted that he wanted her to be gone because he couldn't deal with her anymore. She stated that Renner was incredibly verbally abusive and had a serious substance abuse problem. Apparently, he would also have other women over while they were married. At least 8 women were named that he was presumably having affairs with. And Sunny says that at one point, Jeremy went as far as putting a gun in his own mouth while threatening to kill her, and then fired a round into the ceiling while his 6-year-old daughter, Ava, was asleep in the home. She says that he threatened to murder-suicide her because Ava would be better off orphaned than to have Sunny as a mother. Once the divorce was finalized, he was apparently high while having custody of their daughter often, and even left cocaine in reach of Ava. He also owes thousands in child support.
Well, it's only getting worse in a lot of ways, really. These people are finding cheaper and more terrible thing from bath salts. I mean, people just get creative. Just gonna start drinking gasoline, see what that does. Can't stop people from doing something they want to do, whether it's good or bad for them.
As scary as this one is, and as much as I believe Sunny, the only reason this one isn't a little higher on the list is because we don't have video evidence of his actions like I do for many of the other topics that I'll be discussing. Moving on to number 5, everybody loves fashion icon Fran Drescher of The Nanny, but what few know is that she was the victim of an armed home invasion in 1985 that she eventually helped solve.
Oh, hi, Val, you're not gonna believe this present that Tony gave me. They're not gonna get this.
She and her then husband Peter were living in their LA apartment when 2 armed men broke in. One started ransacking the house, moving the stolen goods to his vehicle, while the other tied up Peter, Fran's husband, and sexually assaulted Fran and her friend who had been over for dinner. Fran apparently has a photographic memory, and she worked with an artist, and the sketch that they created actually is what led to the arrest. The 2 men were brothers, one of which just got off parole, and she's actually written 2 books about her life, including this story and her battle with uterine cancer that she's also survived. Fran Drescher is so wholesome, but unfortunately our number 4 subject is not. This one is going to be so deeply uncomfortable because it A, involves very young minors, and because B, it is not enough to just describe this one. You need to feel the deserved level of disgust that these videos warrant. The younger crowd may not really remember Nelly because he is pretty irrelevant in music today, but he does have some hits that have stood the test of time, mostly seductive ballads about romantic love. So tell me why, in a group of grown women, he has continually invited minor girls on stage to serenade them with his songs.
How old are you? 11.
The girls appear to be anywhere from 16 to as young as 9 or 10 years old, and sometimes he even announces their ages before beginning to serenade them and touch their hair. He even asks one nervous-looking child about school before serenading her and pulling the terrified girl in closer. Let's just roll the clips, and you've been warned. Again, it's extremely uncomfortable.
How old are you? How old are you? You're 16 years old. Hold this for me, okay? I can't shake it, no. I can't wait to see what you have for me before we sail out goodbye.
So I think we have to ask ourselves, if he's comfortable acting like this on stage in front of thousands, what does he really think is appropriate in private? And I just know that some gross person is going to argue that this is totally innocent on his part, and all I have to say to that is, if you think this is an appropriate way to interact with a child, your hard drive should be checked along with Nellie's. Moving to number 3, I think everybody knows about Marky Mark Wahlberg's history with violence and hate crimes, but what's not discussed nearly as often is Jon Hamm's very dark past while in a fraternity. So in 1990, when he was a sophomore at the University of Texas, he was involved in a hazing incident so brutal that the fraternity was shut down.
I don't like losing. I've gotten a lot more mellow in my old age, to the point where I can let it go. But
what used to happen?
Oh, I'd get furious, like especially like when I was a kid. Just like it was just rage stroke out, you know, like lose my mind if I lost anything.
The victim, Mark Sanders, claims that Jon Hamm was one of the ringleaders, and he became incredibly angry that Mark had failed to memorize something that he was meant to recite back to them. It's said that at this point, Jon Hamm lit the victim's pants on fire, shoved his face in the dirt, brutally hit him with a paddle, and led him around the room with the claw of a hammer hooked under his privates.
Bam! That's the hammer coming down.
Hamm was charged but only had to complete probation and was never actually convicted. In 2015, when asked about the incident, Hamm stated that everything was over-sensationalized and stated, "It's a fucking bummer. I moved on from it." His victim, Mark, is now a doctor specializing in medical malpractice and personal injury.
And Jon was only 10 years old when his mother died of cancer. 10 years after that, he lost his dad. What did that do to a 10-year-old kid?
Obviously different for a kid because you're not mature enough to even process it. And you end up having a real void as a kid. So the void has to be filled in one way or another.
All right, number 2. I did a previous video talking about Justin Long's kidnapping, where I briefly talked about him starring in the movie Jeepers Creepers. But what I didn't mention in that video is that the director of Jeepers Creepers, Victor Salva, is a convicted pedophile. Before he directed Jeepers Creepers and the Disney movie Powder, he directed a movie called Clown House in 1989, and while filming this movie, he abused a young 12-year-old boy on set and filmed the whole thing. Before Clown House, his victim Nathan says Salva had actually been abusing him for years, starting around 6.5, 7 years old.
I mean, by this time, you know, the abuse had been going on until I was 9. It had been going on for probably 2.5 years, maybe.
He was sentenced to only 3 years for the abuse, but he only served 15 months. And like I said, he was already a convicted pedophile before being hired by Disney to make Powder 3 years after his release from prison. He made the first 3 Jeepers Creepers, and in the 3rd movie, Victor wrote in a character who was the victim of child molestation, including dialogue that was later cut from the film that justified why the child was molested, saying, "Can you blame the stepdad though? I mean, look at her." Looking back, people have pointed out that the creeper in Jeepers Creepers is drawn to underage kids, often targeting teenagers, which is obviously Victor telling on himself. All of Victor's films have pretty poor ratings, so the fact that he continued to be given opportunities is suspicious. Kind of makes you wonder if he was making other films on the side specifically to sell to powerful people, if you catch my drift. Alright, we've made it to our number 1 spot, and just like the last one, this one is seriously scary. But unlike the last, I never hear this one getting talked about, and that's probably because it was only uncovered a decade after the incident. This one is about a serious sexual assault claim against Chris Rock, but it doesn't end with a simple accusation. The story is made so much worse by Chris's response to the allegation. Let's dive into it, and you're warned, this one is a lot. So it's 1998 when a married Chris Rock asks Hungarian model Monica Sabrita on a date. And side note, Chris was married for 20 years from 1996 to 2016, so not only was he cheating on his wife from the beginning of their marriage, but she stayed with him knowing that not only had he cheated, but he had allegedly raped at least one woman while married to her.
It's like, fuck you, Chris. What the fuck, man? It's like, you? I thought you was alright. You? Come on, Chris. What the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with men? I know a bunch of women are thinking that right now. Every woman in here is like, fuck you, Chris. And every guy in here right now is going, 3? That's it? Just 3? God damn, nigga. I work at UPS. I got more hoes than that.
Though he claims that he and his wife were conveniently separated at the time of his encounter with Monica.
3? You must have really loved your wife. You're romantic.
And again, not only did he allegedly rape Monica, but he allegedly fathered her child as well, triggering Chris to hire a well-known criminal, Anthony Pellicano, as a fixer to make his problems go away. Anthony not only recorded all of their conversations, but encouraged Rock to change details of his story and scolded Chris for giving Monica money to stay quiet, saying that he would take care of her. Anthony also says on the recording, quote, "I want to blacken this girl up totally. I want to make her out to be a lying scumbag, manipulating cocksucker, so that all that could ever come back to her is that. Stupid bitch." And then he excuses himself to go scream like a maniac at his secretary. Anthony, who has Mafia connections and his network of criminals, not only wiretapped Monica, but broke into her home, illegally obtained her police report, intimidated her, allegedly tampered with her paternity test, and more. Though Monica cannot speak out further on her experiences because she's under a confidentiality agreement. That said, we know Anthony is a seriously scary man because of what we've learned from his other victims, including one reporter, Anita Bush, who was threatened for months by Anthony and his gang, ruining her career, running her out of LA, and eventually ending in a brutal attack in a parking garage by 2 men where she was raped and beaten so violently, giving her such severe head and back trauma that she was bedridden for over a year, and then was confined to a wheelchair for another 5 years. She had to relearn to walk and sadly couldn't tell anybody about what was happening, including police, because of Anthony's connections to them. And it's alleged that he used his police connections to run illegal background checks on Monica and others, and obtain her police report, which is what allowed Chris to run interference and edit his version of events, as encouraged by Pellicano. Anita was only able to speak out about her ordeal once Anthony went to trial.
How would you fix that problem? You've got a professional athlete or an actor, a pregnant woman, not his wife.
You have to give that person who's trying to do those things a reason not to do it. And I gave him that reason. I mean, it's just as simple as that. I mean, you fix the problem. That's what I did. They call me a fixer. That's what I did. You know.
How hard is it to make that case to the person?
Being me, not too hard at all. But you know, but I mean, you have to. They have to look at you. They have to know that you're serious. I mean, you could do this the easy way, or you could do it the hard way. I don't give a which way you choose, because you're going to do what I want you to do at the end of the day. Just that simple.
How forcefully did you have to make that case, or did people believe you?
Well, sometimes very forceful. I mean, you know, and a lot of times people would go run to other people to try to intercede, you know, and then I have to face those people too.
So yeah, I warned you it was going to get heavy, and I'm going to make a longer dedicated video to this topic at some point because there's so many details and the story deserves more attention. It's ironic now that Chris was so concerned that Monica's allegations would ruin his career, since not only did he remain unscathed by rape allegations, but he suffered no repercussions, socially, legally, financially, from hiring the literal mafia to ruin his rape victim's life. Chris's story has changed over the years, retelling the encounter as a crazed fan secretly belonging to an organized group of Nigerian criminals who conspire to falsely accuse celebrities of fathering their children, extorting innocent men for money. Meanwhile, his paternity can't be disproven because he hired literal organized criminals to tamper with the DNA samples. If the child couldn't possibly be his like he claims, there would be no need to go to extreme lengths of hiring organized criminals to intimidate anybody or tamper with anything. So that's my top 10 for today, but I have so many more of these crazy pop culture moments just rattling around in my brain, so I'll definitely be making a few more of these top 10 videos. Stay tuned for next time, and if you're still in the mood for celebrity gossip, I have more videos discussing just that. Last week we talked about Angelica Houston, who played Morticia Adams, and how she was arrested alongside her good friend Roman Polanski after he abused a 13-year-old at Angelica's home, as well as her just general connection to the Polanski story. We'll see you next week. Bye!